What's going on, guys? It's Music Player 1979 coming from West Texas today. It's a beautiful July 8th, 2016. I want to start this video by showing you the sea of glass feature that the system so beautifully gives most of the times that we see it come across our region. But most of all, I want to show you these small objects with the debris that are making themselves visible more and more throughout our skies. Now, as we look at this smaller object and we see the debris, I know that there is a larger object that is connected to this small moon, which is very bright. And as this small moon here, of course, is in front of this moon, it lights up the side of this moon very beautifully. But we can see the continuation of this debris path as it 45s itself atop of this larger object. I want to show you multiple videos today to catch you up on the system, show you what it's doing, the gradual imprints that it is making across the sky, creating the phenomenal shadowing that has come with this. I want to show you an older video that was taken June 28, 2013. I believe it was the primary object with its moon at the time. I want to show you again how everything fits together, how that one creates the box, in turn creating the throne, in turn that one object spilling off the other objects, creating again the beautiful 24 thrones. I want to show you the scrolls again. Thank you for being so patient and waiting for the next video. Now again, catching this object, the coloration is very beautiful. We have the tone of oxide within that that holds that color of a dominant red orange color. And as we zoom in, we notice the misty effect, the array of lighting that bounces from this object and continues within the darkness. And so again, as we zoom back into this object that's high up in the east, you can see that I've manipulated the color, the background again. That way we can see the separation of lighting between these objects and the atmospheric tonal blue that we have. All of these guys are side by side. There are billions and billions of objects here. And these are very minutely small, but we can see as they're traveling the lighting ability that affects everything around it, all the way from the very shaded atmospheric blue to the very brightly lit toned oxide cloud. You see the runoff, beautiful oxide that falls from the interaction. We can see the larger objects that are coming into play. It's no longer trusting in your eyes. It's just common sense now, guys. Common sense. These objects are falling down as these objects are already built up and pushing themselves outward. There's no interaction, very dark. They are a large shelf, and they have been a large shelf for quite some time, as these have not. Okay, these are coming down from the top of all this. But we can see the objects again riding on that line as the objects one by one from one side to the other by the thousands come straight down, creating that chemtrail ability. Okay, but the crosses, the weaving nature the system gives, and all the objects that move around the larger ones right themselves. And at moments we can see these large shelves moving outward. Again, 3D aspect. Okay, we are looking at the corners of these as they are coming out of the wall of the cloud, as well as these. Okay, all of these story by story with objects in them, with objects coming down, creating again, as I've said, the cross over and over. And you have two shelves with the bigger object in the middle, of course. The two shelves move down repeatedly as these stairways create. They move down repeatedly on both sides. That creates again, as I've said before, and I'll continue to say it. As I play this for you, this video was taken on June 28th, 2013. I wanted to show you the square nature of the system itself that formed this clock. And you can see from one side the angles of the debris as they are coming down in a downward motion, again from the east over towards the west side. It creates a perfect square. And again, I believe that this creates the first throne. By this doing so, throws off the other smaller objects, the moons, away from that, creating their own thrones, and then so on. And we can see just for moments as I bring the camera back, the object, the moon, the second to the largest moon that is connected to this debris path, as it connects to the primary. Now, as this debris arm, of course, travels at a clockwise rotation, it is spilling debris off of the ends of this. All meanwhile, this object, I believe, this is its debris path. This is the direction that it is coming out of. And this was, again, 2013. As we're traveling, we're looking off into the northwest area, and we have, of course, the very dark, prominent object in question that have, of course, the smaller objects that are throwing themselves away from it. As we continue with this video, you'll notice here there is a debris hand that solely goes up by itself, and it's very smooth in the middle and very oxided in color on the outsides. And again, this is what makes the scroll ability. But we can start seeing the objects that are within this grab of debris that are throwing these moons around one another, around, of course, and we can see a very beautiful object here, very large. We see the wave that comes up in front of this large object because of the push-off. And of course, again, the objects, as we can see the arm, very beautifully bright and full of the oxided tone and color. We can, as well, as we pause and we shift more towards the west side, we can see the rings of debris that continue over these smaller objects and make them again as we are caught with the lighting changing with each and every object, and the beautiful lining that it creates, again creating the stairway ability of objects running themselves in one direction, which in this case would be from the northwest down towards the south direction. As we, of course, move back, we can see the large object with the debris of push-off from the objects and what they create as they push off from them. It's the beautiful angel, the ability to interact with the thousands and thousands of moons as it continues during its travel. But we can see the debris hand. At times, again, very, very transparent, as the other objects come from above and over the top of these. But we make out with the bend of light, with the system, we make this elegant lighting array that mystifies itself with the system and the dominant change in shadowing. The lighting cuts the system so very beautifully, but we can still see the continuation of this area to here through the very beautiful small indentions that are created here, creating the stairway. As we play, we have the lining ability throughout here and all throughout the tops of the system here, as the system continues to roll itself story by story downward or upward. As we see, I want to show you again, this was taken a couple weeks prior to the one that I just showed you. This is the planet, of course, and these are the moons and the debris path that is going over this large object. But in turn, we can see from this side to this side, okay, there's a very high shadowing here, and this is because in turn this large object is creating this large shadow ability because of the debris it is walking over and pushing down away from this large object. I feel that this object is pushing the debris of objects. You can see the brightly lit oxide and the separation from the dark spheric object to the very brightly lit oxide here. But again, the writing says it all, guys. We can see the perfect terms. Now again, as we start this video, we are facing the north side, and of course we have the major debris hand going from the north over towards the west that are holding the objects, of course, like this and this, and this is the debris path as we continue. This is a major object above here, but as we continue to move, we see this large object, and the only reason we do not see the full object, of course, is because it is sitting atop of this debris path, which is very large. And this debris path stretches from the north off into the southwest side. And again, the coloration, guys, is so phenomenally important to pay attention to as you see these objects that are of different sizes completing their action across the sky. It's so important to realize these debris paths that hide 30% of all of these objects, mostly the large ones, but the small ones, of course, again, write themselves around the larger ones, making the whole system in itself easier to see. And we can see the debris going around this small object. It creates the horseshoe again. We can see the objects of different color and sizes that are splashing down and moving away from the larger objects, guys, but that's just minute. This is what is concerning in the smaller moons that are now running away from the north towards the east in this direction. And this is a divide because of this large object. Beautifully. And again, we're back to our moon. Creates the human-like feature. And remembering, guys, all of these moons travel around one. Okay, so as these moons are moving, there is a constant connection from the largest object. And we can see here these objects. Remember transparency as well as we enclose on this very beautiful scroll that is coming down. And we can see the front as we move at a 45. And remember, we're looking at the 3D aspect of things. Okay, so we have this coming down at a 90 and it bends perfectly to a 45. Here's the front. Now remember, folks, it's so hard to see these objects because as they move, the debris continues as the larger objects connect with one another. The debris continues, but those objects don't. They then become very dark and isolated in that area for a specific time as all of the debris plus all the scatters about that are influencing the light from the sun to us. Makes it very, very transparent and very, very hard to see, but they are there. It is the multiple moons with the one, in turn creating that beautiful squared throne. We continue to play. Of course, we have our moon. We can see this moon with all the cluster of dark objects and the moons that move away of different sizes, creating, again, the stairway ability because they are dropping within elevation as they are traveling. You can see these ones that are leaving away from this large moon with the smaller ones. But we can see that. Now again, this is so important to show you because this gives that look of the Sea of Glass feature as we scan over these areas of the sky as the system's coming in on the east side. Now as we look, we can see again the lining that carries with the system, the level of debris, okay, that are stacked upon one another, and as it pushes out, it creates again the scroll idea, the very flat, perfect sides and the fronts of these as they're coming in. The Sea of Glass is the ability to see the atmospheric colors we do here and even here, and still see the outlining of the system in all of its glory, guys. And as we continue this, we still see these objects within this area all throughout here. Very transparent, but they are sitting here, guys. Very hard to see. This is the thief in the night ability the system gives to us as it's coming in, but we still know that it's down here, and we still know that these objects are doing the same thing here on its debris up here and then throughout these areas. We can see the levels and the debris that sits atop, and the mist that still creates itself because of the movement with the objects. It's very beautiful, guys, especially in the morning and the evening times. It really writes itself a perfect form of the sea of glass. And as we zoom, we can still see the very small, minute objects, and they're all running down on a wave. A story of debris creates the stairway. As the ones that are seeing this now, that have started with me the last 3 years, 4 years, can see the difference in the writing of it, and writing of all of the very small veins that make up the beginning of the debris, all the way back to the very largest object that again creates the first throne, the first scroll. Now, of course, as we play it and we move back a bit, we can see that the debris is overwhelming this object significantly and very fast. And we see the moons here as well, as we have one moon here, large, guys, dark here. This is completing the same thing as this is doing. This has the light. This does not at the moment. Okay. Now let's take a look, because everything does the same thing. Everything, all the way to the moon with its debris. Okay, you can see the objects that come from behind it that are trailing, creating the beautiful box cut and the very smooth travel of debris. Very, very smooth. And each area, very beautiful. How it drops, slides down here, right here, boom, it drops. Does the same thing here. These are moons that are traveling this path here, as they have dropped down and have continued, making, of course, the body of the eagle. That this came out of the distance. We can see how it dropped in levels as it is headed towards this direction. This is doing the same thing. It has gone across that large black object. Now first I want to show you the original video here. I want you to see this, because this is how very dominantly bright the system is. Okay, we have to take the colors away to really unveil the mask that's happening here. And this has everything to do with the time that we live in, through Revelations. Without doing anything, we can clearly see the bends of this. We can see the very bright casting of oxide in the back of this and in the front. Deep interaction, we have it here. Okay, everybody that is on the same interstate that I am is seeing this. They're also seeing this beautiful scroll here, and the debris that is falling from that debris path. Because again, everything is coming up at us at a solid motion. These four creatures that are full of eyes, okay, they are filling this system. I've said before through the videos that when the system becomes closer, we will be able to make out not just the planet that I have been following the last 4 years, but its small brothers and sisters by the billions. Okay. So as I darken this out, and you can see what I'm doing, you can see I'm taking the saturation out. That way it gives us that depth of volume. Okay, it gives us that actual look at the circumference of everything, from the outer part of the objects, the moons, to the inner workings of the minute objects that cover or change it. Now again, throughout our civilizations, we have known through teachings that this gives a snake-like feature of travel about it. This is an object with its perfect turn. What happens here is the push-off of other objects. A complete scatter. Now remember, we have objects coming down, and if we start to pay attention, we know that this right here is pushing off from the east to the west. Object, debris path on both sides. Other objects. A sea of glass like crystal. We are going to see the penciling of the objects. So as we continue, we have the push off of this, and it's a very beautiful scroll, very perfectly square. And again, this is the same thing. This is a beautiful scroll with debris falling down on it. And it will continue to do this again and create that stairway. Let's not forget, as I've said before again, when these objects travel, these moons, these four living creatures wreak havoc and create that beautiful array of light along with the other moons that are with them. This is what creates again the Elder's throne. Okay, this is what creates the main throne itself. And then on that throne stood 24 thrones. Lighting, I've said, is so very important, how each object of the system casts itself within the light of it. And also, it's so important of what the sun does with the objects that stand within the cloud. We have an object here. To the common person, we think of it as a cloud. But what we don't see is the true picture of the debris that it carries and the angle that we're looking at this at. Okay, it's the transparency of very prominent white objects, moons, traveling on a very prominent debris path with deep interaction, covering the columns below with darkness from the cloud. Okay. And still remaining the same as these objects that are very, very prominently dark. Now, this right here may look funny to some people. What could be called a tower. Okay. And then the stairways of debris that are falling from it, around it, create the story of that stone right tower. Here, they started here. You can see this turn and this fill-in of debris here. Now folks, we are outlining this, and this is a major shelf of debris. If we start here, we see the debris do a turn from the north, and they are subtly going down, focusing on the south area. We also notice that they have jumped. These objects have come around the corner and are in this area because of these moons that are very dark. They are going over, and they're small objects creating these, but there are billions that follow. And I told you guys in the very beginning that when I looked out and I saw all those planets lined up together one by one, 1,000 of them, I freaked. See a glass like crystal, folks. This is the very beginning of it. So think of this as being in the ocean here, but yet these objects here are still the same as these objects here. Nothing's changing. Again, it's because of what happens with the lighting, folks. We see them coming out of the north, going south. We can see the scrolls starting to appear, the stairway. So we know that there is push-off from behind it, pushing to us, as we see it here. If we look, we see it here too. The smaller objects are creating the same thing. They're creating the stairways of elevation because of the objects. What's going on, guys? It's Music Player 1979 coming from West Texas today. It's a beautiful July 8th, 2016. I want to start this video by showing you the sea of glass feature that the system so beautifully gives most of the times that we see it come across our region. But most of all, I want to show you these small objects with the debris that are making themselves visible more and more throughout our skies. Now, as we look at this smaller object and we see the debris, I know that there is a larger object that is connected to this small within the darkness. So again, as we zoom back into this object that's high up in the east, you can see that I've manipulated the color, the background again. That way we can see the separation of lighting between these objects and the atmospheric tonal blue that we have. All of these guys are side by side. There are billions and billions of objects here, and these are very minutely small, but we can see as they're traveling the lighting ability that affects everything around it, all the way from the very shaded atmospheric blue to the very brightly lit toned oxide cloud. You see the runoff, beautiful oxide. I'm going to show you again how everything fits together, how that one creates the box, in turn creating the throne, in turn that one object spilling off the other objects, creating again the beautiful 24 thrones. I want to show you the scrolls again. Thank you for being so patient and waiting for the next video. Now again, catching this object, the coloration is very beautiful. We have the tone of oxide within that that holds that color of a dominant red orange color. And as we zoom in, we notice the misty effect, the array of lighting that bounces from this object and continues, that falls from the interaction. We can see the larger objects that are coming into play. It's no longer trusting in your eyes. It's just common sense now, guys. Okay. Common sense. These objects are falling down as these objects are already built up and pushing themselves outward. There's no interaction, very dark. They are a large shelf, and they have been a large shelf for quite some time, as these have not. Okay, these are coming down from the top of all this. But we can see the objects again riding on that line as the objects one by one from one side to the moon, which is very bright. And as this small moon here, of course, is in front of this moon, it lights up the side of this moon very beautifully. But we can see the continuation of this debris path as it 45s itself atop of this larger object. I want to show you multiple videos today to catch you up on the system, show you what it's doing, the gradual imprints that it is making across the sky, creating the phenomenal shadowing that has come with this. I want to show you an older video that was taken June 28, 2013. I believe it was the primary object with its moon at the time.